Hey everybody, welcome back to the Giver Method channel. My name is Jake and I'm so glad that you're able to join me. Now today, we're going to be talking about how you can turn doubt into actual direction with where you want to go, and really want to uncover what you can do when overthinking tries to steal your momentum as a part of that. Now let me ask you a few questions that could actually hit close to home and might uncover some things for you of how this topic is applicable to you. Like, how many ideas have you kept in your head? Maybe you're perfecting the idea, or you're prepping for it, while someone else with maybe less experience just ran with the idea and actually made that thing happen. If you're feeling that a little bit in your gut, or maybe you're cringing a bit right now, trust me, you're not alone. We call this overthinking or analysis paralysis, and it loves to dress itself up as we're being careful, or I just want to get it right. I'm doing my due diligence, but let's be honest, it's usually just some sort of a fear in disguise waiting to just, hold you back from what it is that you were meant to do. Think about it. How many times have you spent weeks over analyzing things like the best school for your kids while other parents just picked one and moved forward? How many business ideas have you researched to death while someone else launched their messy version and learned along the way and made money off it? Or how many career opportunities maybe have slipped by because you were still thinking it through or considering it, and maybe someone else just said yes and went for it and took the leap. Here's the thing, overthinking, it doesn't keep us safe. It keeps us stuck with where we are, and it drains your momentum and your energy. It steals your confidence, and it keeps your gifts that you're meant to put out into the world hidden instead of being shared with people. And so I want to uncover this a bit for you today and give you some real practical ways that you can work through that. Now, my name is Jake Talbert. I'm the founder. I'm the author of this book called The Giver Method. It came out in November. Since coming out, it's become an Amazon bestseller. It's sold thousands of copies. It has tons of 5-star reviews on it. And what people love about it is the fact that within the book, there are worksheets, exercises, action items that you can do to start taking the type of thing we cover today, because everything we cover today are grounded in the Giver Method book, and it helps you to uncover your gifts and superpowers, create more impact and influence in your world, more value for the people around you, make every engagement you have with people really meaningful so that you have deeper, more meaningful relationships, you live a more fulfilled life, and you can step into who it is that you're meant to be and have that joy, that daily delight back in your life. And so I highly recommend you go on Amazon, get yourself a copy. I'll put a link down below in the description where you can go get it. Like I said, get yourself a copy before prices go up on it. It's the best $10 you can invest in yourself. You can either go to Amazon and look up The Giver Method by Jake Talbert, or use the link in the description as a part of that. If you want to pause the video and go do that and come back, you're welcome to. Get this thing at least shipped and on its way, so that way you can take advantage of it. Now, I know firsthand, as I cover in the book a lot, I cover everything with firsthand experiences that I've gone through, so that it's real. And the thing is I'm like you. I've been there. Okay. I'm a parent. I've got 3 kids. As an entrepreneur, back the day when I worked in that 9-to-5 corporate world, I've lost count how many times I let doubt hold me back. But at the same time, I've also coached hundreds of parents and business owners and high performers through this exact trap as well. And today, I want to help you break free from it too. I want to give you the exact tools that you can go put into place as a part of that. Now, what I love whenever I do the book, I like grounding them in my own story, but I also like doing tons of research and providing you the data behind what it is that we're talking about. And so with this one, there's research out there. It says because it basically says out there that, people who make decisions quickly and adjust along the way hit their goals 60% faster than those who wait for more clarity or perfect clarity. Action takers, people who just jump at things, they report 25% higher life satisfaction and 30% better career outcomes. The takeaway, clarity isn't something you think is you can think your way into something. It's you earn the clarity by moving forward, by creating the momentum. How many of these things, if you're feeling burnt out, stressed, overwhelmed, if you're trying to accomplish that next thing, if you're wanting to, step in that next level of whoever it is that you're meant to be, a lot is just taking action. The proof is there. There's so much research in that. So today, I want to walk you through these 7 really practical strategies that busy parents and overwhelmed entrepreneurs and dedicated employers are using to stop overthinking and start building that real momentum. Like I said, it's all got ties direct into the Giver Method book, so you can go get that if you'd like. They don't these don't come alive. These things don't work with you through overanalysis. They come alive through that action. So you can get it on Amazon down in the link below, or at thegivermethod.com. In the links down below in the description, I'll also include how you can get, follow us on all social media, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn. I love when you follow us and we get a chance to interact with you there as well. You can also go to thegivermethod.com, learn more details about us. And then, of course, if you're feeling like, some people watch these videos and like, hey, this is amazing, Jake, but like, I either want to go faster as in my development, or I need someone there. I need a coach, a guide, a mentor. And it's like, great. I've opened up a few one-on-one of my coaching spots right now that are available, that you could go look at the details and determine if it's a right fit for you. So the link is down below in the description. Go check out the coaching page. And if it makes sense for us to jump on a call, then let's jump on a call and talk through things. I want to make sure we can coach the people who need that one-on-one coaching right through that. Now, if you maybe run a team, lead a podcast, host an event, or a mastermind, and you're like, man, this type of a message that Jake does and the type he does in this channel, like, it would really connect with my people, like, it would light my people up, then hey, let's touch base. Let's connect with what that could look like. There's a link below for speaking and podcasting as well. And hey, if this video hits home for you, drop a comment what lands as we go. I'd love to read those and comment back. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, ring that bell for notifications if you haven't already. I don't want you to miss out on the content that I drop throughout the entire week. Okay, so let's stop letting this analysis, like over-analysis, really run the show, and start building the life that you've been thinking about for way too long. Like, let's actually start accomplishing those things so we can live those aspects today. And so the first strategy I want to talk about is, like, there's this, like, the instant decision protocol you want to put in. You break the analysis, like, addiction that's there, by with having strategic time limits. I believe in a speed to success. Quick move, cut through the noise, move forward. That's it. Like, because if we're real, most of us give everyday decisions way too much power. Like, we treat picking dinner, like where we're going to go eat dinner, like we're planning the moon landing. We spend hours analyzing things that, like, we just need to make a gut call and maybe a few seconds to a few minutes to do. And the wild part is, like, the longer you give your brain to think, the more it will find things to worry about, to overanalyze. If you give yourself a week to make a decision, your brain will find, like, a week's worth of things to stress over. But if you give yourself an hour, it magically shrinks it down for you. The truth is, like, the quality of your choice doesn't usually get better with more time. Often it actually gets worse. You start second guessing, you start creating problems that didn't exist. You start maybe looking into places where maybe you didn't need to go look. Like, research shows the people who decide quickly move faster. Like we talked about, they actually are more satisfied with their choices, than those who stay stuck in these endless loops of the what ifs. Like, the what ifs are the worst thing in the world. And that's because, like, the people who move forward faster, they're building the evidence that they can go figure things out as they go. And so here's what I want to do. Here's how you can start, putting this into place. So you're going to do this thing called, like, decision triage, okay? You sort through, like, decisions. Like, if this, like, just for quick actions, like, I've got a decision, and we're going to look at things like there's low stakes, medium stakes, and high stakes. Low stakes being, like, hey, what are we going to eat? Or quick tasks, medium tasks, which, like, hey, this might affect, like, the week for us, and then high stakes, these are big life-changing stake things, career changes, things like that. And give yourself limits. Maybe there's a 3 to 5 minute window for anything low stakes. Maybe you give yourself an hour for medium stakes. And maybe you have, based off the type of high stakes, before you're going to decide and start looking into the data behind it, you're going to set a time limit. That could be a 24-hour window, it could be a 72-hour window, and you're just going to make some sort of a decision at that point. Set a timer, set a reminder, set a thing, like, no endless open loops. And guess what? You could make a decision, take one step, and be like, that wasn't right, and come back and redecide. But that momentum builds so much amazing data in your brain. And then next, you can use this, like, first gut, like, snapshot sort of a thing, where before you start reading reviews or asking 10 friends or making another spreadsheet of data points, like, jot down what was your gut answer? Like, right away, what was the first thing that came to mind? And you'll be surprised how often that first instinct was spot on. Because you can compare it to later. If you're like, this is what I thought, and then you go do your research and you talk to the people and you do your spreadsheets and breakdowns, and you come back and you're like, actually, that was pretty much what it could have been. And I could have started that back then, and maybe it's not quite that, but I could have pivoted along the way. Like, you're so much closer than you think if you just go with that gut reaction. And then for bigger stuff, I like this idea of a decision sprint, where you block off a few focused hours instead of stretching it over weeks. Like, gather the info you actually need, weigh the options, and then make a call, like, and then move on. because life doesn't happen in your head. It happens when you move, when you actually do things. When you set limits on your decisions, you train your brain to focus on what actually matters instead of spiraling into like the endless worries and what ifs. You prove to yourself that you can make good calls, without knowing every detail, and that you can figure it out along the way. Your confidence grows not from a perfect plan, but from just showing up and making moves, and adjusting along the way. And that leads us to the second strategy, which is this, fear behind, like the fear behind the analysis, right? And we have to audit and check these things. Like there's hidden motivations. We want to create some sort of a detection system that, helps us find the fear and check in on it. Like what's the real reason you're stuck? Something that most people never see coming. Like you think you're, overthinking because you're being thorough. I'm a thorough person. I like it to show up. So I like showing up a certain way. I'm a perfectionist, right? Like you tell yourself you just want to get it right. You double check everything. I want to be smart and responsible. But here's the real thing. Like 9 times out of 10, the endless analysis is just fear in a clever disguise. Fear of failing. Wow, goodness. Fear of looking foolish, like I just did. Fear of disappointment, or letting somebody down. All of those are big, scary feelings dressed up as like, I'm being responsible research and was what I'm doing. The tough part is your brain is a pro at making fear sound logical. It's wired that way, right? It'll say like, hey, you just need a bit more info. Like, hey, it's not quite time. Or hey, what if we mess up? And then suddenly you're stuck in the loop that feels like you're being productive, but actually it's just keeping you safe and small. Instead of moving forward, like you're circling on the same question, stuck in what feels like the safe territory. Because like as long as you're thinking, you don't have a risk of messing things up. So how do you break through this? Like let's talk about the ways that you can move forward past this. And so you start with this thing, like there's a 3-layer question drill you can do. So the next time you catch yourself maybe spinning on any sort of a decision that you may have, like ask yourself, like, what am I really afraid of? Like will happen if I go for this? Like what fear is there behind this? Write it down. And then ask yourself, like, what am I afraid that would say about me, how I show up? And then write that down. And then the third question is like, what am I scared other people will think if this doesn't work? And like, you are going to be amazed, okay, at what you see. You've exposed the real driver of the overthinking, and you can start to work through those fears with actual logic of saying like, yeah, but that's not real. Or yeah, I don't know that to be true. That's just a story I'm telling myself. So you could take those, and one of the ways that you can do that is you do this worst case scenario, like worst case reality check sort of an idea, where like, okay, well, what's the absolute worst thing that could realistically happen if any of those fears came true? And then next to each one, how would you handle it? What would you do in that moment? And you're almost like always realize that the worst of it isn't as maybe catastrophic as you thought it could have been. It's not as big or crazy. Like your mind makes it out to be so much more. Just seeing it on paper steals so much of the power that those fears have. And then another move that you could do is like, there's this fear or wisdom test. Like, and before you launch into another, like, I'm going to do more analysis or, whatever, just pause and ask yourself like, hey, am I gathering info because I actually need it to make a smart move? Or am I just scared to make the move at all? True, like wisdom-driven research has an endpoint. Fear-driven research is a treadmill. Lots of sweat, no actual forward progress. You can't solve problems like that you can't name. Once you shed light on what those fears are, like they lose the grip, and you stop letting them control it or drive the bus, right? You start making decisions from a place of courage, not avoidance. You go from frozen to like free to move about, and from doubting to doing, from that stuck place in your head to actually building the life that you want, that you've hoped for. Now, the third one is going to be this confidence evidence like collection system, like self-trust database building. It's a scorecard for your self-trust where you build that confidence by collecting your wins. Because if we're honest, most of us have a highlight reel in our heads of like mistakes, and they run on repeat there. You remember every misstep, the awkward moment, every decision that didn't go perfectly, but the really good decisions and the wins, the things that maybe you wouldn't like write home about this crazy win, even like the little things, like we barely give them a second before moving on to the next worry. And the big reason so many people stay stuck is that in this overthinking, right? Like they don't actually trust their own judgment because they never gave themselves the proof of that trust. They never marinated in the moment. And the truth is, confidence doesn't come from the thinking more. It comes when you start stacking the real life evidence of the solid calls you made and how you handled what happened next. You don't build that self-trust waiting for any sort of guarantee. You build it by moving and learning, seeing what you can figure out as you go. You start seeing this thing like this, this idea where you want a decision win journal. So it's the first idea that you could implement. Each week, jot down at least 3 decisions you made. They don't have to be anything huge. It could be like you chose to send that email. You finally had that tough conversation. You trusted your gut on something small, whatever. Note what happened afterward. The key isn't perfection. It's to see how often moving forward actually worked out, or maybe taught you a lesson that you'd be able to use next time. Another thing is that I love to use a thing is like this quick call tracker. All right. For a month, keep track of the decisions that you made, within a 24 hours versus the ones that you overthought. Like, what are the decisions I just made right away? I got them done, with that day versus ones I took more time. Notice how they turn out, like how they turned out, how you felt about them. You'll probably see that the faster calls don't just turn out to be fine. Like, they often created more momentum and new opportunities than you expected, and you got them moving faster. And then there's a fun one where there's like the gut check record, where before you make a decision, you write down that first instinct we talked about, and then you come back and look at it after. Most people discover that their instincts are way more reliable than they ever gave themselves credit for. When you start stacking evidence of your own good judgment and stop letting that inner critic call the shots, you're going to realize you're way more capable than the voice in your head ever gives you the credit for. And that leads us to the fourth strategy, the fourth idea, which is so there's this gift-guided decision framework, all right? Using natural strengths as a compass, the gift compass, the decisions that make just feel like you, right? You have this navigation system ready to go inside of you already. Most people make decisions based on what they think they should do, what looks good on paper, what they see on Instagram Reels, what other people expect, or what seems safe. But the real power is in choosing what feels the most like home to you. Your natural gifts, your strengths, those things that we talked about in the Giver Method book that could be your superpowers, right? Like those things that are right there inside of you, they aren't just fun party tricks. They're like a built-in GPS for you that of the things that actually light you up in life. When you make choices that tap into those natural abilities, the stuff that comes easy and feels good and energized, you don't need endless analysis. You're not forcing yourself down a path that drains you. You're moving with the things that feel true to you, and that's going to build so much more momentum and excitement as a part of that. A lot of people, who are stuck trying to fit in the molds that weren't ever actually made for them, whether it's a career, a project, a parenting approach, whatever, based on someone else's blueprint, and then they wonder why they're so exhausted or unfulfilled. And the truth is, when you choose to, from your gifts, every day just gets simpler. You feel more confident and engaged. You feel more like you. So let's talk about how you do that. Start with your strength inventory, and if you need a deeper dive, get the book, The Giver Method, because it will help. But the strength inventory lists 5 gifts or talents. Just start with there where that just come naturally to you and make you feel alive. Maybe you're great at connecting with people, or breaking down complex ideas, or inspiring action, or seeing opportunities. Maybe you're a great listener, whatever the thing may be. These aren't just things that you're good at. They're like clues of where you'll thrive. And then next, you do these energy checks where before you make a big decision, ask yourself, which option lets me use the most of my gifts? Which feels more energizing instead of draining? And then pay attention to your body as you do. If it feels lighter and exciting, that's a huge clue that you're on the right track. If it's draining you and causing you regret, then maybe you're not. Maybe that's not the decision to make. You can choose, you could choose to do this in all sorts of ways. You can ask yourself, if I fully trusted my gifts, what would I choose? How does this decision let me show up as my real or authentic self? And these questions cut through all the noise and get straight to what matters most to you, and that's that alignment. Choosing from your gifts, you're not fighting yourself anymore. You're not wasting energy trying to be something you're not. You're building confidence in just what the things that are natural to you and your natural operating system and your zone of genius. That's where your best ideas and connections and results will always come from. Where you can build momentum and joy and impact that you can start to multiply. And that leads us to the fifth strategy, okay? The fifth one, which is this idea of the small experiments. We've talked a lot about these ideas, go with your gut and do these things. Well, let's talk about testing ideas through action. How do we get things moving without overthinking? Because once again, that trap that people are stuck in is believing the decision has to be perfect, or it's permanent. I can't do anything. I can't pivot. We treat choices like they're set in stone forever. Gosh, if we mess up once, it's game over. But the truth is, most decisions are not final commitments in any way. They're just small experiments waiting to teach us something. And so when you shift that, you have from when you shift from this idea of like, I have to get it right, it has to be done just right, to like, hey, I'm going to make the decision, I'll learn as I go. Maybe I feel good about this one, but it may not end up being the right one, but I'll pivot if I need to. Pressure drops. Instead of endlessly researching, second guessing, like, or you whatever, you get to gather data in the real world. You stop trying to guess what might happen, and you figure out what actually is going to happen. The truth about it is, like, instead of debating whether to start a side hustle for months, or to offer a new service to a client, like, instead of overthinking this new parenting approach forever, just try it for a few days and see what happens. Like, little moves teach you so much, like, and then it teaches you so much more than any like pros and cons list or a spreadsheet could ever do. So here's what you want to do to get started. Start this idea of like, there's the smallest viable step, right? And so it's for every decision that maybe you've stressed out about, ask yourself like, well, what's the tiniest action I could take and learn something about today? If it's a new career idea, like, shadow someone or volunteer in that for a day. Thinking about a new offer, like, maybe just pitch it to one person and see how they take it. Like, you don't need to send it to the whole world or announce you're doing this new thing. Next, you can do this idea of like learning first thinking. Instead of asking like, what's the right move, it's like, well, hey, what do I need to learn right now? Like, if I'm not sure of what the end result is, well, what do I need to learn as a part of that? And write it down. Before you go act or anything, like, after you've tried it, spend a few minutes reflecting, like, what surprised you, what worked better than you expected, like, what might you tweak next time based off of that. And then build your iteration time. Like, after each little experiment, take maybe 10-15 minutes to check in. What did you learn? What's the next small step? This builds a cycle of like reflection and progress rather than a loop of like mental gymnastics. Action will always beat analysis every single time. Like, and you're while you're over there spinning, in your head, someone else is learning and doing and moving faster. Experiments are going to build momentum and confidence in actual results. When you treat decisions like experiments, instead of like these life sentences that I'm stuck with forever, you unlock your gifts and build more self-trust and finally get out of your own way. Now that leads us to the sixth strategy, which is like, there's a momentum multiplier. Like, how do we create some sort of a framework or method around that? Like, create forward motion that just builds on top of it. Stack the wins that just become unstoppable. Momentum is like a real, like, it's the secret sauce, right? Once you're moving, everything gets easier. Decisions don't feel heavy. Confidence starts showing up on its own. And like, new doors just open because you're in motion, not because you're stuck planning. The problem is that overthinking is like slamming the brakes on your momentum. It pulls you out of action and it drums you right back into your head. But you don't need like some giant, like, life-changing move to break free, right? You just need small and consistent steps that build on each other. One small win today beats the perfect plan that lives in your journal forever. And so when you're moving, people feel it, opportunities pop up, support shows up that you never expected, and you just start feeling that buzz that tells you that you're actually living instead of just preparing to live. There's so much energy around that. It's contagious, it's magnetic, and it shows up when you stop just analyzing and just start taking action. So here's what you want to do to become create some unstoppable momentum as a part of this. Like, you do first, like, there's this daily quick decision, like, where you commit to one small decision each day without overthinking. It could be as simple as picking a restaurant, or starting an email draft that you've been avoiding, or saying yes to the invite you keep putting off. Just decide quick, act quick, and then learn from it. And then use like the next right move mindset. All right. I love this one. I love using this one with business owners, entrepreneurs, especially. Like, instead of mapping out the entire future, just ask, what's the next small step I can take today? If you're thinking a career change, maybe it's researching a job. Maybe it's messaging one person. Maybe it's starting a side hustle. Like, okay, well, cool. Like, maybe that's drafting your first offer or making a quick intro call. Like, just focus on the next step, not the whole staircase, not trying to climb the mountain. And then finally, like, try momentum tracking, where you keep a running note or a journal where you record like what you acted on versus what you just thought about. And at the end of the week, see how many times you like what you actually moved on. Like, the goal is over time to spend more days doing than doubting. Momentum, we talked about, builds confidence, and confidence is always going to lead to more action. It's a loop that fuels itself so much more. Once you can see that you can move, you stop waiting for the perfect time or the perfect answer. You just start focusing on progress. It draws opportunities towards you and helps you make decisions that feel less scary. And so lean into it. Like, you know, it helps you start living in motion as a part of that. Like, so much growth and impact can happen when you're living from that freedom. And then that leads us to the seventh principle that we're going to cover today, which is like there's this uncertainty tolerance builder. You know, you got to get comfortable, develop comfort with like incomplete information. There's an acceptance to that when things aren't clear. You know, a big reason that people are stuck in this sort of way is like there's this idea and it sneaks in on you. You know, in the back of our heads, like, what if I just think a little harder or plan a little longer? You know, maybe finally I'll feel 100% certain before we move. But the truth is, like, you're never going to feel perfectly certain. Life doesn't work that way. Honestly, like, most successful people, like, you know, the most fulfilled people in life aren't the ones who avoid uncertainty. They're the ones who just learn to dance with it, right? Think about like uncertainty as like this muscle you're building. The more you practice moving without every answer, the stronger you get in handling life's curveballs. And gosh, that resilience would be amazing to have in life, not just in decision making, but when those curveballs come. You know, it's not that confidence, you know, that the confident people, like, that don't feel fear. They do. It's still there. They've just built in a skill of how they're going to act while they're feeling it. They know that discomfort doesn't mean like, hey, we need to stop. It actually means like, hey, you're growing, you're heading in the right direction. And no, like this doesn't mean that you act recklessly or you ignore like basic caution. What it means is that you just learn to tell the difference between healthy preparation and endless stalling because you're scared, because there's doubt, there's fear. Preparation is about having enough info to make a solid choice. Overthinking is about chasing the guarantees that will never exist. So how do you start training this uncertainty muscle? Well, the first thing would like think about comfort zone stretches, right? Every day you pick one thing that maybe you're going to do without over researching. I'm going to pick a new restaurant without reading every review. I'm going to try that new workout without Googling 10 articles about it. I'm going to say yes to the opportunity before maybe I feel ready. Like just tiny steps like this, they teach you that you can handle whatever happens, and that most outcomes aren't as scary as maybe your brain made them out to be. Then you can do think of the good enough rule. Like I've got a good enough info. Decide what is the basic amount of info you need to act, and then collect that and then move forward. Like no extra just in case digging. Like when you feel like you're hesitating, ask yourself well, what's the worst thing that could happen here? If it doesn't go perfect, how could I handle it? And once again, usually the answer is I could handle it. I have ideas of what I would do. The answer is yes, I can make it through this. And the cost of standing still is higher than the possible misstep. And then you flip how you just see uncertainty. Instead of seeing it as a danger sign, you treat it as proof you're stepping into something so much bigger. Nervous energy, that's your comfort zone stretching. That's your future self building in real time. It's your future self trying to pull you into who it is that you're meant to be. Remind yourself that's not a problem to solve. It's just a sign that I'm growing into who it is that I'm meant to be. Building this uncertainty muscle, it sets you free. You stop needing the crystal ball to act, so that you can move faster. You seize more opportunities, and you can actually enjoy the journey along the way. It's that there's going to be messiness, and that's fine. You stop burning the mental energy around trying to control the outcome. And when you're good at handling the unknown, you become unshakable, and you learn to trust yourself. Not because you're going to always get it right, but because you know that you can figure out what it is no matter what, and that's going to be freedom that's so relieving. It's going to take so much pressure off of you. And so as we wrap this thing up, here's something that I want people to take. I want people to always understand that the life you keep analyzing and trying to perfect in your head, gosh, it's not waiting for you to finally feel ready or to go figure out the final clue. Your life is happening around you, whether you move or not. The strategies we talked about today, they aren't just for making decisions faster. Yeah, they're going to help with that, but they're just for, or for checking things off a list. Yeah, they help with that too. But they're about finally getting out of your head, and into your life, because your gifts and your ideas, your impact, they don't live in this endless planning. They become alive when you're moving and when you take imperfect action and slightly scary steps along the way. Superpowers you have inside of you, they don't need you to overthink them into perfection. They need you to trust them enough to show up messy and experiment and learn as you go. They need you to let them guide you toward the life that you are actually meant to live, not the one that you're cautiously tiptoeing around that doesn't feel right. Like I said, for my own journey of working with, my own journey of going through this type of stuff and working with hundreds and hundreds of parents and entrepreneurs and employees just like you, I learned that the clarity you're craving doesn't come with spreadsheets that you're going to have or late night overthinking. It comes from just taking action. Confidence will show up like, it doesn't show up before you move. It shows up because you moved. And momentum you need doesn't come from thinking, about running. It's the fact that you just took the first stride. The people you admire that seem successful and happy and fulfilled, like, they aren't more certain than you. They're not necessarily smarter, better prepared, or sitting on some secret handbook, manual, playbook that you missed out on. They're just a little bit more willing to take some chances, to move forward without a safety net, and to bet on themselves even when the whole picture isn't clear. So stop waiting for this perfect moment. Stop searching for that guarantee that doesn't exist. And stop analyzing yourself out of the life that you keep telling yourself that you want. Your gifts are meant to be shared, not hidden behind that veil of I'm almost ready or I'm not quite there. Your ideas are meant to breathe, not stay trapped in drafts or notebooks. And your impact is meant to be lived out loud, not polished behind some door forever that no one will see. The person you're becoming, they're waiting for you on the other side of just some simple decisions that you keep putting off. The life you're craving is waiting for you to just stop planning and just finally step into it. Now, like I mentioned earlier, if you want to dive deeper into this concept, that's where you're going to grab yourself a copy of the Giver Method off Amazon. The link is in the description. It's going to walk you through not just breaking free from overthinking, but activating your unique gifts that only come alive when you take bold and messy action. And hey, if you feel like you want to move faster on that, or you need some sort of a guide in your corner along the way, while you step into this, then like I said, I've opened up just a couple coaching one-on-one spots, mentor slots, and you can check out the details down in the links below. There's a coaching page. Check it out. And if it feels like the next right move, then let's maybe book a call and talk about what that could look like. And then, of course, if you lead a team, host a podcast, run a mastermind, whatever, a community that you're like, hey, this message would really light them up. It would help a ton. Well, let's connect about how we bring this work to them. And so there's a link below about speaking and podcasting. And if this video hit home for you, drop a comment. Let me know what stuck. I love to comment on those. I love to respond. Like and subscribe. Hit the bell for notifications so that you don't miss out on what's coming next. And just remember that overthinking doesn't keep you safe. It's actually keeping you stuck. And the world doesn't need you to be perfect. It needs you to be present and authentic to who you are. And the momentum is just waiting. Your confidence is waiting. Your life, all of that is just waiting for you to just stop thinking about it and start doing it, start living it. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch the video today and hanging out with me today. I can't wait to see what you create when you stop holding back and you just go for it. And so I will catch you in our next video. Have a great rest of your day.